Acoustic Shop channel, where we are going to be discussing with my good friend Josh Williams here, Bourgeois Guitars and the large soundhole D.
Yes.
All right, so we are here with Josh Williams, and I don't need to do a big introduction for you guys. Josh, an amazing musician. We've had a lot of years. We've hung out for a lot of years.
We have.
A lot of years. We were both kids at one time, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I guess, or something. But now touring with Rhonda Vincent, done lots of stuff, and you are one of the Bourgeois endorsed artists.
I am. I'm very proud to be so.
Well, I don't blame you, because fabulous guitars, a lot of connection, and we actually had a guitar almost identical to yours. Slight differences, obviously. It's the same configuration, different pieces of wood, so there is some differences here. And we've kind of talked those over, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. What is your connection, and how long has it been with Dana?
Okay, so when we first started talking, I actually hung out with Dana for like 2 years, him and a couple of the guys that work for him, and I got to know them before we ever struck any kind of a deal. And to me, that was like what really did it, was getting, and during that time with hanging out with Dana and stuff, and of course Andrew and James, I got to play a bunch of different guitars that they had built. And most of this happened at IBMA, and we were able to hang out, and I got to try all these different guitars, and in fact, one of them that he had was a mahogany guitar, and it filled the room up just like a D28 would, and it blew my mind. In fact, I even told him, I was like, this guitar should not be kicking my butt, but it is, And for whatever reason, they remembered that, and I think they actually wanted to use that in something too. So I'm like, yes,
that's the one I would use too as well. Yeah. In our next ad is going to be Josh Williams says this shouldn't be kicking my butt, but it is.
And it was. I'm not joking. I mean, it really filled the whole room. It's just, and to me, that's the sign of a really good guitar.
Absolutely.
Obviously, if you can not only feel it, while you're playing it, but if like the room feels it, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how it was. And that was like one of my first times really thinking, wow, these guitars are really awesome, And then I got to actually spend like several evenings hanging out with Dana and talking back and forth about what kind of guitar that I like and all that kind of stuff. Plus, he was very interested in my connection with Tony. And, because I got to, almost for 5 years, got to travel with Tony and play mandolin, stand on his immediate right, watching everything he did,
I'll bet.
Which was absolutely amazing. The first time I ever played with him, I'm getting off subject here, but the first time I ever played with him, we were doing an instrumental, and he was taking this solo, and it was just amazing. And he got to looking at me like, had this weird look on his face, like as if he was to say, what are you doing,
Sure.
And I realized why. I had stopped playing, and I was just watching him, so he was like, well, what the heck, man?
I can see why that might invoke that response.
Yeah.
It makes sense, I guess.
But anyway, I'm getting off subject. But
we will get back to that subject, I promise.
But we were spending time talking about different things, and I got the opportunity to play many different styles of his guitars, and I got to more or less pick his brain too. And when I learned the type of person he was, the type of ear that he had, and then playing, his finished products, it was a no-brainer for me, But it was very important for me that I think with the real deal ceiling, if you will, was just getting to know him and forming that friendship with him first. Yeah, and his workmanship speaks for itself.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You know, that's what I think a lot of people know about Bourgeois Guitars is Dana as it's his ear. That's what's kind of created the sound that they're doing, and he voices things in a certain way to create the sound of these guitars.
Yeah, he really does.
And it is a unique sound, and also does some great design ideas too. But so that leads you to the guitar that you're holding right now,
Yes.
which is, tell them what you got right now.
Well, this is a Adirondack top, Brazilian back and sides, large soundhole Dreadnaught, and
Thermo cured too.
yes.
Can't forget that. That's what gets that dark brown caramelized color.
That's exactly what it is. I'd forgotten that, but yeah, that's exactly what that is. And man, it's just a great guitar, you know.
So why this? I mean, I kind of know why, but why this particular model? Besides the connection with Tony, what was your deciding factor for this particular model?
Well, I mean, first off, it's one of the few guitars that has the large sound hole to me that looks right. You know what I mean?
We can discuss that. Yes, I know those.
Because you have, you know, and I've had a couple of different larger sound hole guitars, you know, over the years, but they just, something about the extension actually coming across the air chamber to me just looks really cool, you know. And there's some builders that will say that it does affect, you know, the way that the air is being pushed out of the guitar, but I don't hear it, you know what I mean. And when I saw his design of it, to me it's the closest thing that I have seen that looks like Tony's guitar. And obviously I've been a huge Tony Rice fan all my life, you know, and Clarence White, of course, you know, I've got a lot of old pictures of Clarence holding that guitar and stuff, and it's just always been kind of an iconic look. And I've just always liked it, and there's not a lot of people that play them, you know. So I've always been drawn to the way it looks. I mean, that's cosmetically, that was like my first reason for wanting to do it.
Sure.
And the tone of them are different, as you know, just from playing them. They are a little bit different, and when you're miking them, I've heard that they can be extremely cantankerous because, you know, I've had to deal with Mike and Tony's old guitar before, and it can be a challenge. But I have never had a single problem miking this guitar.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely see that. So this brings us to, you know, what we talked about earlier. You said this earlier. You spent quite a few years standing right next to Tony. You played with him. You obviously, it wasn't just on stage. You hung out with him. I'm assuming, I've never done this, but I've got to talk to Tony a few times. Super nice guy. Said amazing things that inspired me beyond, you know, anything. But I've not got to play the guitar, and it's been my dream, obviously, at some point.
Oh, man.
I would love to do that. I'm assuming you have. So
I have, yes.
Let's talk some of the comparisons. You said, obviously, the look. You were right with this, and that's one thing, before we get into that, a lot of companies have done large sound hole rosewood dreads. There's been a Martin version. There's been, I own a Santa Cruz version. Collings has done a few different ones. Martin's done newer versions of it. One of the big things that I like about this particular version, and you talked about the look, this is the only one that looks like it's actually been reamed out like the original was done. A lot of them create a new rosette and put space to have that wood marker on the outside. This one actually goes to the original rosette size, which to me makes a huge difference in the way it looks and acts. Again, it's the same diameter, so I don't know that it makes a difference in tone, but it does have that look. So what other things do you compare on this guitar versus the original one?
Well, okay, so on the original, when you really look at it, it's like from a distance, it looks like it was done really well, but it actually wasn't. Like, it's been cut like slightly into one of the braces, and like it's pretty rough.
So not the way you should do
No. Like, but just something about it, you know. And I had always heard the story that I think my dad early on told me a story that he had heard, which was Clarence had broke it and then cut it out with a pocket knife and all that kind of stuff. According to Tony, the guitar, when Clarence actually got it, that had already been done to it, so they didn't actually do the cutting. And bought it at a garage sale for $25.
Of course, why wouldn't they?
So of course, yeah. But that guitar of Tony's, for whatever reason, it's And obviously he's got it set up probably lower than a Telecaster would be, you know, but, and he really doesn't play that hard anymore. But the lighter you play that guitar, the more sound comes out of it.
Really?
When you really try to dig in and like bring volume out of it, it will not let you, you know, it's, Tony always had a saying for it. I probably can't say it, but
not in the exact words. We will paraphrase.
Yeah. All I would say was, you know, you can't do that. You got to make love to it. Let's say that. So that was exactly what he told me, almost verbatim, not quite. But the strange thing about it is, for whatever reason, when you really dig in it, it just kind of fights you. You know, it doesn't come out. But when you lighten up a little bit, that guitar will absolutely fill the room up. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Wow.
But obviously, there's different things about it. Like it doesn't have an original fingerboard on it. You know, and some say that it's not the original neck. Some people say that it is. Tony seems to think that it came out of an early OM. But I don't think there's been some people that say, you know, that they were not very consistent in 34 and 35 yet on what kind of necks they used. But I've seen pretty consistent other guitars from around that same time that all look the same, you know, so I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to try to claim to be. So, but just something about it, man, and these guitars feel, if you know, to me, like it. And they're new guitars, you know. I mean, Tony's, that old guitar, that, you know, that Martin has just got very little finish left on it from over the years, you know. I mean, it's you know, how many years old, you know. So for these to still be like new guitars and to be covered in lacquer and all that kind of thing, they still, you feel them when you play.
Yeah.
You know.
I think a lot of that ties back to, I know, and Dana's really big on this, and I've become actually a huge fan of it. The thermo-cure process has really kind of brought back, there's a character, and you've played lots of old guitars. I've played lots of old guitars. I own one. There is this dry character, and I, for lack of a better word, I always say poppiness. It just kind of jumps out of the guitar in this dry way. It's not wet. It's not overly, you know, saturated sounding. It's just like this really just kind of pops out of the guitar sound. And that thermo-cure process seems to do it especially along with Dana's voicing. But these are kind of ways of getting out of a new guitar a much closer to that vintage type of sound.
Well, I think the whole reason for doing so is kind of like wanting to age the top a bit. And I mean, so that's, you know, that's bound to happen. But I mean, it's a very smart, it's unlike, you know, back in the day when they say that Frank Wakefield baked his mandolin, you know, it's kind of the same thing.
It's the same idea,
you know.
Way more scientific.
Yeah, exactly.
He did. Believe it or not, Dana did not shove these guitars inside his actual oven and bake them. There's actually a scientific process behind this, so it is a little bit better than the Wakefield. Throw it in your oven and bake it like a cake.
I think there was science behind that too, but of a different kind. I think it was more chemistry.
It was definitely chemistry. So anyway, very, very similar guitars. I'm holding one right now that's brand new, and I actually got this specifically because I talked to James down there and I said, we want to do one, because I know you had this one. You had showed me this right after you got it. And I said, I want to do one, because we do a lot with Rhonda and you guys coming around the shop and stuff. And I said, I'd like to do another one just like that. So that's what we have here. We have identical guitars, except for, obviously, we have a little bit different piece of Brazilian. This one's also Brazilian rosewood. Very different character, darker stain. Yours has what they call the sap strip, or what else do they call that? I can't remember now, but yes, it's got this figuring in there too. Very, very similar guitars, spec-wise different. Now, one thing that yours has, and I know it was deliberate, especially working with an artist.
Yes.
That was always a problem with this particular model. If anybody created a version of this guitar, you saw it on stage, you didn't know who built it.
Yes.
Because the original guitar does not have the Martin logo no longer on it.
Exactly.
So everybody to replicate that also took that logo back off of it. And there was different ways of doing it. Santa Cruz put their logo down further on when they built the original with Tony. Everybody's done a different version. I know for you, they wanted to make sure that people knew what it was going to be.
Exactly.
And I would too. Again, let's talk about why. I mean, you got such an amazing guitar player here that is showcasing your guitars. Everybody's going to ask, what has he got? You want to make sure people know that.
Exactly, yeah, you want to see it.
They put it on the front of that. This one, they put the logo on, but on the back of it. So it does still have that original character of the original one, but without the inscription on there. But other than that, identical guitars.
Yes.
Very, 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 very cool. So let's talk a little bit before we go on here about your connection with Tony. You played with him for, you said 5 years?
Just about, yeah.
Okay.
It was really close too.
And you did guitar, some secondary guitar as well as mandolin, or always mandolin?
Well, okay, so most of the time, 95% of the time, it was just mandolin. You know, he, obviously, I'm not going to take the guitar position away from him, you know. And
why not?
Of course, Wyatt was there too, you know, in the unit. So he asked me, he literally called me one day and just asked if I wanted to come play mandolin on something. I was like, yeah, you know, I've always wanted to do that. And literally went down there, played a show, and then a couple weeks later he had another one and he called me again. And then his manager started calling me from then on. And then about, gosh, I guess it was about, that was in May. I think by September or October of that year, we played the Birchmere. And it was myself and Ricky Simpkins and Wyatt and Bryn Davies on bass. And we did our set. In fact, it was a double bill with J.D. Crowe and the New South. So it was us and them.
That's
but
awesome.
It was a lot of fun. And they ended up, they were doing a DVD, KET was, for J.D. Crowe. So they brought a crew with them and like did all of Tony's interviews while we was there. But Tony called us in after the set into one dressing room, you know, backstage, and basically said, you know, would everybody be interested in, you know, keeping this configuration going? He said, because if I had, you know, my choice, this is the configuration I want as the unit. And of course we were all like, yeah, absolutely, you know. So I played with him for like 3-4 months before it was actually an official thing, you know. But yeah, it was just the coolest, getting to stand on stage, you know. And I stood to his immediate right. And it was never cooler though until we played IBMA Fan Fest one year. And they had this big thing for Tony, you know, like 9 o'clock at night, 10, whenever it was. And I mean, the place was absolutely packed. And they started out with a configuration of the original New South. And of course, Skaggs was out there and Flux, and I think they had Ricky Wasson. No, Ricky Wasson wasn't there. Skaggs sang the lead on it, on Old Home Place. And then he jumped to tenor on the chorus, and Jerry sang lead on the chorus. So that was just really cool to watch. But anyway, afterwards, they had Bobby Hicks up there and played some other stuff. But then he says, you know, we're starting to change gears and stuff, and he said, I need my mandolin player. And when he said that is when I got to come up on stage, and that was just like the coolest.
That has to be the coolest.
But it was also during that time when I had won IBMA Guitar Player of the Year, so that was a weird, you know, I felt like this shouldn't be right. Like, I'm, you know, playing mandolin for the best guitar player in the world. How am I getting this, you know? And the first couple of years was so funny. Tony's his whole view on it was just hilarious. And he told me that night, and he was at the award show. So it was like, it'd be so cool if he could have won, because he'd actually been there to accept and all that. And I won. So talk about feeling this tall, you know, when you get up there and you start looking out and you see Tony like 4th row right there, and I'm just like, of course I gave him all the credit, you know, because I wouldn't do this. I'd still be playing banjo somewhere if it hadn't been for watching Tony when I was like 10 years old or 11 years old. And but he told me before the show, he said, hey, I want you to know I've got a lot of money riding on you. I hope you win. Yeah. And
He probably did.
Yeah, he may have.
Part,
Who knows? But then the second year, he was like, good job. And then the third year he said, and he called me, he said, listen, congrats, but I want to remind you that I have a North Carolina concealed weapons permit. So, but man, he was just the coolest. He was just the coolest.
Yeah, I have, someday I'll tell you my Tony Rice story, and this is a guy who has inspired more people and continues to do it this day. And this is, his career started many, many generations ago, yet to this day, new guitar players are all still talking about this. And why this guitar is so important is this is, to me, in acoustic guitars, this particular guitar, the original one, is such an inspiration for so many people and so many guitars. To me, it's the most famous acoustic guitar out there. Whether you're a bluegrass fan, whether you're a Tony Rice fan, whether you're a Byrds fan, everything that has been done between Clarence and Tony is inspired off of the guitar players that it inspired, as well as the guitar itself.
Yeah.
So many great stories, and it makes these particular guitars that much cooler. And again, you're bringing this another level. I'm really excited about it. I'm glad you're working with the guys at Bourgeois. We're glad we're working with the guys at Bourgeois.
They're great,
gals.
man.
We hope this continues. So, Josh, thank you so much for sitting down. We talked a little bit about guitars. And as always, I do want to say here, the song that we played at the beginning, we'll have a full version of that also available on YouTube. And you guys can check that out as well. So until next time, have a good one. And this is Josh Williams, guys.
Glad to be here. Yeah, man. I love it.
Hey, thanks for watching that video that we just did. I'm gonna make this universal, so we're gonna use it on all the
Good.
I hope you enjoyed that thing that I said. And if you'd like to see more things like that, just subscribe down below where it says subscribe. You'll be notified anytime we do another video.
And while you're at it, make sure to check out our website, theacousticshop.com. We have free shipping on most products and one of the best return policies in the country.
We know what it's like to buy an instrument online. You never know what you're gonna get. When you get it, if you're not happy with it, send it back to us. We're not gonna be mad at you.
No.
We'll be a little disappointed in you, but no. We want you to find the right instrument, and there's no way to know until you try it. So we encourage you to try it out, play it, and then if it's not the right fit, we'll find the one that is.
There we go.
Also, be sure to comment down below. We'd love to interact with you guys. It's not a one-way street here.
No.
You get to say things, we get to say things back to you. If we say mean things, we're gonna say mean things back. So.
We may or may not do that. Anyway, we thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.